Adding to this complicated choreography is that the royals are one of the strongest cards the UK can play with President Trump. He seemed delighted by his second state visit invitation from the king, so messages from the king are sent in symbolic displays. In case anyone missed the signs over Canada, there have been multiple moments, and then some more. When the king visited aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales, he appeared wearing a set of Canadian medals. The 60th anniversary of Canada's maple leaf flag might usually have passed without any royal intervention, but there was a fulsome message sent by the king praising the proud, resilient, and compassionate country. A ceremonial sword for Canada became an event at Buckingham Palace with a formal presentation by the king. At a tree planting ceremony in Buckingham Palace, the tree chosen was a maple. And when the king sat down at the Commonwealth service last week, it was on a Canadian chair. If any of these moments were accidental, they were not being rejected by Buckingham Palace, with royal sources emphasizing the new Canadian Prime Minister told the king that his Order of Canada pin had broken this morning. The king joked, "Do you want another one?" "There's much to catch up on," said the king, ushering Carney to a seat and perhaps hoping that the broken pin was not a symbol of a Commonwealth relationship under strain. "These are important matters," said the king, ahead of a 30-minute conversation with no one else in attendance. The meeting with Carney is the latest scene in an intricate diplomatic balancing act for a king who is head of state of both the UK and Canada. King Charles has to show solidarity with Canada without disrupting the UK's relationship with Trump, who is antagonizing Canadians with his economic threats and calls for Canada to become the US 51st state. The king also has to avoid getting directly involved in politics and has to speak on advice of ministers. Whatever he might personally believe about Trump's comments about taking over Canada, the king has to keep his thoughts to himself. Watch King meets Carney in symbolic support for Canada 3 hours ago. Sean Coughlin, Royal Correspondent, ShareSave, Ken Wenzer-0x003800042. King Charles, who is also King of Canada, meets Mark Carney at Buckingham Palace. King Charles gave a warm welcome to the new Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney when he visited Buckingham Palace. It was another symbolic gesture of support for Canada from a king wearing a red tie who has to send coded signals rather than spell things out in words, as Canada faces threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. But the king has sought to make clear his commitment to Canada, and if it had not been for his cancer diagnosis, the BBC understands he would have traveled there for an intended visit in 2024. There are also suggestions that once Canada's election is out the way, a visit to Canada will be a priority where he can further demonstrate his support. Canada will never be part of U.S., says Carney in first speech, as PM Canada's Carney makes statement by choosing Europe, not U.S., for first foreign trip king's pivotal role in Trump and Ukraine balancing act.